most are IRS employees, so they don't really count. But and Nathan has heard it before, so he doesn't really count either. But you'll be glad to know this is the extent of our slide presentation, our PowerPoint presentation here. You know, when you kick off an initiative like this, a worldwide initiative, the first two things we had to do were come up with a name and a logo. And actually, Bert and the folks from the Netherlands actually came up with lapel pins, which unfortunately I forgot my lapel pin. But so I'll just start. I gave kind of an overview and an update of what the IRS Criminal Investigation does this morning. So I'm not going to repeat that here this afternoon. I'll give a little bit more time to Bert to explain what his organization does. But as we've been chatting and known each other pretty well over the last year, it's remarkable the similarities that our organizations have. And I will say that I'm very jealous of Bert because you look at we were talking about staffing, and so we have under 3,000 employees, so about 2,100 special agents for a population of what, 350 million? And Bert informed me just about a half hour ago that they have, what, 1,400? 1,400 employees for a population of 17 million. So you do the math there. It's very very well staffed organization. But a lot of the challenges that we face, there's a lot of similarities, and there's a lot of similarities in our organizations. And we get asked quite often, what is the J5? What's it all about? How did it start? And it's a remarkably unscientific way that this whole thing came about. We are and have been actively involved in OECD, and have enjoyed a great partnership with each of these 5 countries. We've got a long history of working together. We were at an OECD event, which would have been November of 2017, so a little bit over a year ago. And many individuals, a lot of great stuff going on. We all spoke. There's literally hundreds of people there. Very very formal environment. And the 5 of us, the chiefs, really put our heads together, and took the challenge of the OECD to try to take things to the next level. So in years past, Bert and I may see each other once a year. I would see my equivalent from these countries once a year in a very big formal environment such as the OECD. So I want to make the point, first of all, that this doesn't take the place of the OECD or any of the other great international work that we're doing. This was really just a desire of the 5 chiefs that have somewhat similar tax systems and structure of our systems, and really a desire to operationalize what we're doing. And it's really become, over the last year, standing up an organization from the ground. I'd say, if I could kind of summarize it in one word, it's innovation. It's, we've always worked closely with our international partners, but this is, how do we take it a step further, and how do we operationalize it? How do we have, how do we generate results and actually have cases to show for it, instead of these some of these other meetings that we go to. So it is really a relatively small organization. We sat down in the Netherlands in February of last year and kind of charted out what we wanted this group to do, what success was going to look like. And it is literally led by the 5 chiefs. I mean, we have direct involvement. We speak in a more formal environment every other month, but we chart out, what it is we want to focus on, and we've picked some initiatives and focus areas, and Bert and I are each going to talk about those in a little bit more detail, but have really, then we handpick. We've handpicked employees that have worked these cases before. So in my case, with IRS CI, we've got the initiatives that we're looking at are cyber and cryptocurrency. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. Professional enablers, which is being led by the HMRC, but we all have a very keen interest in. Bert's going to talk a little bit more about the initiative that the Netherlands is leading up on data and platforms. And if you heard us this morning talk about the importance of data tools, and the value of all the data that we have. And there's a lot we can do internally within the IRS and domestically, but some of the things that are being done internationally with our international partners, particularly the Netherlands, just some incredibly innovative techniques that they're using that, again, we think we can diversify our data portfolio by learning some things from other countries. So he's going to talk a little bit more about that. But it is essentially a group that has cut out many layers of middle management. So we've got agents that are working directly on these projects and report out directly to me. So you've got 7 or 8 levels of middle management that have been cut out, and really talk about innovation, because it is something really different. And Bert hopefully will talk a little bit about we did a 24-hour challenge recently. And it's things that are very foreign to the government environment, things that we would never consider, and adopting some best practices and things that are being done in the private sector, and trying to apply them to the work that we do. So really, it's the overwhelming desire was to work closer together, put our really smart agents and employees together, working on common interests. And you look at those areas that we talked about on the enablers and cyber and cryptocurrency. These are challenges that we're all facing, and there's a lot of information sharing and whatnot that we can do. And the other point I want to make at the onset here is each of the countries is set up a little bit differently. So there's the rules, the laws, and regulations in the United States about disclosure of tax return information. We have the grand jury system. Many of our cases are grand jury, and that information can't be shared. And there's legal mechanisms to share the information back and forth between countries. Nothing in the J5 initiative bypasses any of those legal constraints that we operate under. I mean, that's something I'll put right out there at the beginning. We still have to follow the same rules and regulations as we do in any case. So we have been, I'd say operational here for since last June. It took a little while from June, so we're probably about 6 or 7 months in. And for anybody who knows anything about the financial criminal investigations, the average amount of time that it takes us to work a case in the U.S. is about 18 months. That's 18 months from starting the case to recommending to the Department of Justice that somebody be prosecuted for a federal crime. So one of the challenges that we obviously face is, how do we measure our success, and how do we gauge and monitor our success as we're ongoing when it takes a long time to recognize success. So that's one of the things that takes a lot of our time and effort when we're talking amongst ourselves and the chief. So with that, Bert, I'll turn it over to you to kind of give us an overview of the FIAD and your thoughts on the J5.
Okay. I will start to give you a short overview of our organization. I think that's important to understand this. And what Donald already mentioned, the field from the Netherlands, we are one of the 5 proud partners of the J5, because we are think and willing to take some effort in it. Because we believe that without the J5, if it will not succeed, and it will succeed, we can make a real difference in our criminal investigations worldwide. The field, our organization, my organization, is specialized in financial investigation. Follow the money. Sometimes nowadays I call it follow the value, because what we see is that money more and more is replaced by other goods. Virtual currencies, this morning is already talked about, but also what we see is trade-based money laundering, even watches or cars or something like that is used for paying illegal transactions. Within the field currently we have 1,400 highly trained financial investigators. And in general, because we are part of the Dutch tax administration, people associate us only with tax fraud. However, that's just a part of our job. More than 50% of our time is dedicated to other crimes, such as money laundering, bankruptcy, and corruption. That's different than most of the countries. The IRS Criminal Investigation in the field have the most similarity, I think, and I believe in the J5. The other countries are a little bit different from us. But it may be a challenge, but we can see some opportunities also with these differences. And because we do not only tax crime, but also money laundering and corruption, that's why I think, and we think, that the police, the field has the opportunity, when we have and are informed by sources, to decide what is the most effective manner to deal with the case. We can make a decision. And it's important for us. We are always looking for the most effective approach. Sometimes tax crime, sometimes money laundering. We look at the case and we make a decision. And that's easy for us because we do all of it in one organization. In other countries, you have to decide, you have to give it to another organization. We have it in one system. And what we have in the Netherlands also is that the public prosecutor in the Netherlands has a dedicated part of it, and it's specialized in fraud. So we have prosecutors, and nowadays there are a group of 300 prosecutors in the Netherlands. They only do cases like our cases: tax fraud, corruption, money laundering. So we can deal with specialists also in the public prosecutor office, and that will help us very much. And furthermore, our organization, the field, has the same legal rights and powers as the Dutch National Police. So we have our own arrest team, an observation team, an intelligence and cybercrime units. So we can do wiretapping, covert operations, and work with informants. We can do that in our own organization. And our main focus from the field these years is financial investigation, follow the money. And follow the money, financial investigation, I always say that because there is a lot of misunderstanding in that. It's not only the seizure of assets. But what we do is, in all our investigation, we follow the financial trails. And I'm referring to the financial trails criminals leave behind. And these can be used not only for asset recovery, but also for develop intelligence on criminal activities, identification of criminal networks and their enablers, and evidence of organized crime. And with enablers, professional enablers, I mean the people who facilitate the criminals with moving the money and hiding the money all over the world, the criminal money. And what we call professional enablers in the Netherlands, we call it the accountants, the lawyers, the notaries, the brokers, notaries, that kind of people. And first and foremost, our main target is not only the criminals, but also the professional enablers. The people who facilitate the criminals. They make the complex business and financial structures. They make it possible to move and hide the proceeds of crime all over the world. We also have to see them, I think, as suspects and bring them to justice. I really believe that if we focus more and more on professional enablers, on the enablers, we can be more effective and have more impact. At the same time, we get information about the organized crime groups themselves. So we can also bring these criminals to justice and seize the proceeds of crime. In our investigations, we see different roles of professional enablers in facilitating financial crime. Let's look at the key roles we see. First, we see the role of initiators and creators. These people who make and take the initiative to set up the complex business and financial structures. Those who are looking for the places in the world where it is difficult for law enforcement agencies to get the information. Places where it can be easy to hide real ownership of money and assets. Secondly, what we see is what we call brokers, the middlemen. More and more we see that's a special part of it. People who are the linking pin between the upper world, mostly white collar, and the underworld, criminals. Brokers provide the contact, the relationships and the networks. Not only organized crime, but also relations in the upper world. Think of the trust officers, the lawyers, real estate brokers, and even sometimes, unfortunately, within the government. And thirdly, we see the key role of the facilitators, what we call facilitators. And those are the people who support tax fraud and other kinds of criminal activities. They give the advice and other kinds of assistance. They provide the necessary agreements. And not only the complex business structures, but sometimes the simple, you can call it the more simple things like logistics, temporary housing, new identity, etc. We see now, the last years, that those 3 roles can be filled by different individuals or in one person. And furthermore, we see that those people also work in networks, multidisciplinary networks. They use each other's knowledge and skills. A lawyer, an accountant, and a notary are working together more and more. And often they work and facilitate multiple criminal networks. And what we call, first in criminal investigation and law enforcement, we saw what we call OCGs, organized crime groups. And now we have a special name for that in the Netherlands. In English you would say OPGs, organized professional enabler groups. And that's a problem in our country. How to deal with that? And I'm not talking about all the lawyers, all the accountants. It's a small piece of it, but we have a problem with that. So that's why we have our main focus more and more on the enablers. And if we want to have real impact with our criminal investigations, we have to work internationally. No longer just isolated criminal investigations, but joint international operations. And as field, we want to have impact, add value to society with our criminal investigations. Let's give you an example. Last year, we did a big money laundering investigation against a Dutch bank. Maybe you heard from it, the ING. The bank violated laws on preventing money laundering. At the end, the bank admitted criminals has been able to launder money through its accounts for years. And the bank agreed to pay $900 million to settle the case. And to have real impact, we could have said, case closed and up to the next one. But if we want to have real impact and add value to society, we cannot see this investigation as an isolated operation. Our main objective within the field is not to prosecute an individual bank. Our impact will have to be a better, honest, and reliable financial system in the Netherlands and even worldwide. That's our main goal. It's true that the banks, and in this case ING Bank, must properly exercise their role as a gatekeeper. But in the end, we are mostly concerned with the criminal flows of money in our financial system. The billions of criminal dollars that are laundered worldwide every year. That's our main goal. So if you look from that perspective to have real impact, we also have to work together with those banks, the same banks. Banks are the gatekeepers of our financial system. Banks have to know the customers and to monitor the financial transactions. They notice and report unusual transactions and prevent illegal transactions. And therefore, after the criminal investigation at the bank, we started a special program we call Financial Safety. We started it together with the same banks, the Dutch National Bank, Prosecutor Office and the Ministry of Finance. And at this moment, we are working together to prevent and combat money laundering with all those partners. We go as far as permitted by law. We share information, knowledge, tools, and we even exchange employees to help each other. This will lead to more and better signals for combating money laundering, find the criminal money and money flows, and seizing the criminal money in the system. Currently, at this moment, the Dutch banks are hiring hundreds of extra people to combat money laundering in the Netherlands. And the field hopes to receive an extra budget from government. They have decided it last Friday. I didn't heard it yet, but we hope to get some extra budget of 200 extra financial investigators for the coming years to combat money laundering in our financial system in the Netherlands and worldwide. Together, I think we can combat money laundering, and that is what we call impact. So nationally and internationally, what we see is more and more cooperation. The case I just described, all the money is going all over the world. There are a few financial hubs in the world. The Netherlands is one of them. There's a lot of money going through our system, our banking system, trust offices. There was a university in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam. They did a research, And they told us, I don't know if it's true, but they told us that 20% of all of the money is going through the Netherlands every year, through the Netherlands. It doesn't stay there. Sometimes it's just 1 second, but it's just going through the system. So it's very important to work together internationally. We need more cooperation. Only then we can be effective. Financial crime, tax crime, money laundering is transnational. It's a cross-border problem. And that's maybe the main reason for us, for the field, is to join the J5 initiative. Don has already mentioned it. It's very important for us to have some organization working together with some organizations. We have the same focus, goals, and the same structure to work together. The field chairs one of the 3 action groups of the J5. The other ones already mentioned. The IRS has cybercrime as an action group. The other one is professional labors. That's chaired by the UK, the HMRC. And we have the group that we call platforms and data. And our motto is, within those, in our action group, and I think I can say it's a motto also by J5, learning by doing, and we give thereby responsibility to our young experts, our youngsters. We pick them ourselves. Don already mentioned that. We did the same, and they are direct under us, under my supervision, and there's no middle management. Our youngsters can make the difference. And what we do is we focus on operational cooperation. And what we don't do is new policies and guidelines. Operational cooperation, that's our goal. One of the examples of our action group is, at this moment, together with our J5 partners, we are building a system for international data matching and exchanging information within the current jurisdiction and problems and legislation. We don't make misuse of it, but we are trying to do data matching, exchange of information to speed it up. We have a system now, we call it FCI.net. And what it is, it has the same technique as we use in what we call financial units, Egmont, Vincent you call it in the United States. They have also a system. And it's the technique, it's match-3 technique. And what it is, it's a decentralized virtual computer network that enables law enforcement agencies, but also supervision agencies, to compare, analyze, and exchange data. That's one of the initiatives from J5. We're working on it, and we hope this year to get it really operational, and we can use it in our different jurisdictions. Another example of our action group this year, of last year was, you already mentioned it also, is our 24-hour challenge. What we did is we had 5 groups, data experts and ICT experts, young professionals, young investigators from the 5 countries together in our country, in the Netherlands, and we gave them a 24-hour challenge. What we did, we gave them an assignment. And there was a big assignment, how it would be possible in our organizations to process and analyze large data sets in a smarter and faster way. They had little sleep, they had some pressure cooking on it, some competition. We formed 5 teams of the 5 countries. We mixed the countries in 5 teams, and there was some competition. And it was very interesting to see what our youngsters, our experts, could achieve in only 24 hours. It was impressive. I was together with some of my colleagues from the J5 in the jury. And what we're doing now, and that's the difference, is one of the groups has what we thought the best idea from the assignment, and it's called a project we call Hydra. And currently, at this moment, we are trying to make it operational. And that's a big difference. Normally, in our cooperation after such an event, we all go home and sleep further on. But now we are trying to make it really operational. And our people are the youngsters of our organization are very energetic. They can do a lot more than we can in 24 hours. I can show you. And it's very interesting. And it's a challenge what we do more and more within our organization. We call it sometimes hackathon. We use it for hiring people. So we give people some assignments, and then we hire people after that. And what could be interesting also for J5, what we done recently, what you call it, cash-a-thon. It's the same as asset recovery. So we give some assignments and information and data, and to find the proceeds of crime within those groups. What we see is, from J5 perspective, and that's what I already told you about, is the main reason for us, for the field from the Netherlands, to join J5, and we are real believers of the J5. We have to share more and more and exchange knowledge and new technologies, and we do that. Together we are more. We have to see financial crime as a global problem. It's not, it's transnational, cross-border. And I strongly believe in operational cooperation, and that only together we can combat the international and transnational tax crime and money laundering. Joint operations to disrupt the criminal activities of those who enable financial crimes and those who benefit from it. And that's what I would say J5 is all about. That's my short introduction.
Bert. Yeah, appreciate it. I have to give Bert praise here and his country and his support. So I talked about the platforms and data and some of the innovative things that the Dutch are doing. I think those two, that he talked about at the end, the FCI net and the challenge, don't happen without the J5 and particularly leadership on the Dutch side. But the FCI net, just to give a little bit more, detail on it, is a very innovative, allows us, it's not up and running yet, but it will allow us to be able to deconflict, case information without actually sharing the names of individuals. It's all based on algorithms and keys and way too complicated for me. I've seen a couple demos on it. But it is innovation at its best in terms of that kind of technology. So we're excited to hopefully this year get that off the ground. The challenge, I first heard about it. I figured the employees in the U.S. that we had participating were gonna try to sue us because we were making them work for 24 hours in a row. But again, this doesn't happen in the government. We've never done it before. It's not something that we've never thought about. But again, you've got these really smart, energetic folks that grew up with technology, and this happens in the private sector. You have a problem, you have a challenge, you lock people in a room, and they literally for the entire week, but for a 24-hour stretch, worked as teams, and there were team members from every one of the J5 countries. And were given very little information. They had to come with the capabilities of their country and help solve a problem. And they literally, in that 24-hour period, coded new systems. And this Hydra system that Bert mentioned is something that we, amongst the 5 countries, hope to make operational. So it's a kind of really innovative way of kind of attacking this problem and the collaboration. And it's something, I'll talk give a little bit more details on the cyber and the crypto, but it's also very conducive, I think, to doing a challenge in that area and coming up with some potential mutual targets. And the individuals that we're investigating, the crime knows no boundaries. They don't care whether or not what obstacles we have to encounter to investigate them. And you talk about the speed at which money can move now. Literally as quickly as I can log on to my smartphone. If I had any Bitcoin, I could transfer it to somebody. But the ability for our agents and employees to be able to be working at the ground level is critically important, because you think about all the legal processes that we have, the MLATs and the letter rogatory and all that. Well, the money's gone. The money flows so quickly now. We need to be able to, agents need to be able to get in touch with other agents in other parts of the world much quicker than before. So that, one of the tangible benefits we've seen right off the bat is our ground level, boots on the ground employees, have regular interaction with each other now. So that's definitely been a benefit of the J5. So I should have mentioned this at the beginning, but any questions, please just raise your hand. If something piques your interest as we're going, or you want some more information, just shout it out.
I have a question for Bert. One of the things.
Can everybody hear?
She's coming. She's coming. She's running.
Faster, faster, faster.
I had a question for Bert. It sounded like the Netherlands was different than the U.S. in the bank laundering, money laundering prosecution or resolution. You said part of it was that you exchanged individuals. Did that mean that your folks actually have access to go into the bank and audit their records or have some function in their records?
I don't understand the question right, but
When you talked about the IAG money laundering, and they had 900 million resolution, I thought what you said was, as part of that, there was an exchange of personnel.
no, not in the case itself, but after the case. What I meant is now we've done the case, we make the transaction with them. It was the case was over. It was closed half year ago, but after that, and that was our decision. That's what I meant to be. What we normally would used to do 5 years ago, it was end of case, case closed, new case, another bank or another institution or something like that. But we thought about it, if we want to solve the problem, to have real impact, but money laundering is the real problem. It's not the bank that's the real problem. The problem is all the illicit, the flows of money, criminal money going through the system. And if we want to fight the crime, the money laundering, we need the same banks, not only the ING, but also the other, we call it in the Netherlands, the system banks. We have 4 big banks in the Netherlands. So we need all the banks. So what we did after the case we closed with the ING Bank, we sat together with all the CEOs of the 4 big banks, the system banks in the Netherlands, and we decided what we're going to do about this problem. Are we going to solve it? And then we need each other. And after that, the banks, what we call, they stepped forward and they told us, and we had to talk with the Ministry of Finance and all the other partners. Now we call it the safety agenda, financial safety agenda, and now we're working together. This 6 months ago, we brought them to court, we did a big transaction with them, and nowadays it's possible for us to work together with them. And that's another mind shift. Looking at another way at the same problems, because the banks, we think, are a part. What we think is that we call it in the Netherlands, maybe it's a long answer, but I call it money laundering or tax crime under siege. And what we say in the Netherlands, you always need at least five partners to solve such a kind of problems. Because money laundering, and even tax crime, maybe is a social problem. What we say is, if society thinks, what we call I don't know in English, but in the Netherlands we say, if you see tax crime as a national sport, and you see money laundering, that people are thinking that's good for economy, then we have a bigger problem. And what we have, if we have to solve those problems, you need at least 5 partners. And one of those partners, we call it on the siege. And the S of siege is social, society, awareness, something like that. But one of the E's from siege is enterprises. We need the banks as the gatekeepers from the financial system to help us to solve. They can have the solution in our problem. So what we are doing nowadays is we're working together with those banks. So our employees are for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months going into the bank. They're learning about the systems. They're learning them how to look at the signals. Because in the banks, financial institutions, I don't know if there's someone in the audience from a financial institution, from a bank, but they're going every day millions, billions of transactions through the system. So how can you see those transactions and make the right decisions? So our people are helping them to train them to make the right decisions. And otherwise, the people from banks are coming in our system and so we can learn them something. And we are trying within the Netherlands to make the system better. But at the end, our main goal is a safe and integer and financial system worldwide. And that's how we are trying to do something about the billions of dollars that is laundered every year or every month maybe all over the world. That's what I meant with working together and exchange people.
Thank you.
Sorry for the long answer.
Hi, I'm Lucy Commissar. I'm a journalist. One of the, you mentioned the perception, the culture, whether it's okay to do certain things as long as it makes money. Do you see that there's a problem in your country allowing, promoting what is known as the Dutch sandwich, which allows the biggest international corporations to, I would say, cheat on their taxes through a flim-flam that ought to be illegal, but it's not. And on the other hand, you saying you're going after the bad guy, money launderers, tax evaders. Why are those people bad and the Dutch sandwich people not bad?
You pointed at me? I saw it. That's more a political question, what you asked for me. I'm just a government officer. But there are some assumptions in it. But what we're trying to do is an honest and safe financial system, even in our country. And we know, and we are not the only country in the world, I call it 5 financial hubs all over the world. We have the same problem. And it's interesting, those 5 countries, I always say it's Hong Kong, Singapore, Dubai, Panama, and even the Netherlands. What we see is those are small countries. They have a big harbor, a big airport, data centers, a lot of banks and trust offices. They have the same possibilities. And what we see is that if there's a lot of money going through a country, I already told you 20% of all the money in the world. The same is with logistics. If there are a lot of goods going through a country, Panama, the Netherlands, with the harbors, we are the main port for all Western Europe. So we are misused by the criminals. And that's not only in the logistics, the drugs in the containers in the boats, but it's also in the financial system. If 20% of this money is going through the Netherlands, it's easier to put some criminal money also in it. So we have that's why we are now working together with the banks and also with the Ministry of Finance to make an end of it. No, but that's you understand why.
There was another question, gentlemen.
My question involves personal responsibility and the ability to prosecute. I appreciate the steps that have been taken in investigation and in tracking down what's happened. But I can't believe that there are very large banks that have huge money laundering going on inside them and the top management not having been aware of it. Too much money is involved. HSBC, for example, laundered close to $1 billion in drug money. It seems to me that top managers have to know what's happening because it's such a large component of their profit. Yet nobody seems to be able to prosecute. Individual responsibility is not something that the prosecutorial system can handle. And a lot of that has to do with the inability of the global system to put evidence in a courtroom across international borders, to put witnesses in a courtroom across international borders. And how do we get beyond investigation to holding individuals accountable?
So you're, I'll answer generally. I obviously can't talk specifically or, getting into an area I can't talk much about, but I can tell you, for us in IRS CI, we're interested in individuals. And as I mentioned this morning, we don't control our own destiny. We don't control our own cases. We investigate, and the cases that you're referring to are all grand jury cases. So we're working under the direction of the Department of Justice. We investigate, we make recommendations to the Department of Justice, but we don't determine the ultimate outcomes. But I can tell you as the head of the criminal division of the IRS that we're interested in individuals. That's why we're investigating, and I'll just leave it at that.
And that's the same with us. We always go after individuals, but that's in the Netherlands, and I think in all the countries, in law enforcement, very, very difficult. Because you have to prove it. And so it's always our goal, not only to do the transactions with the companies, but also for the individuals. We have some cases done, and sometimes, and what we have also a problem with in the Netherlands, we have to have the jurisdiction to do the case from the individuals. A lot of the big companies, the people who are leading the companies are living abroad or are foreigners. But we always give in those cases the information to the other countries.
All right. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's Brian Monroe again of Association of Certified Financial Crime Specialists. Two questions that are kind of interrelated. What is the J5 doing to kind of identify and go after these major money laundering hubs? Obviously, a lot of them are happening through banks. You have the OCCRP reporting on the various laundromats and things like that. But also kind of part and parcel of that is, as Jack mentioned, the compliance programs at these banks. The ING Grow Up, it was pretty much a failure of the AML compliance program. So I'm wondering, in the US there's a lot of compliance actions, but I don't see a lot of coordinated AML actions between multiple jurisdictions. An action between the Netherlands and the US and another country. I've seen it happen in kind of FCPA, but I'm just curious, what are you doing to go after the major money laundering hubs? And then in the AML actions, like you said, not just see what's happening in that jurisdiction, but happening globally with that bank to see if the failures are kind of multi-jurisdictional. Thank you.
One of the things that we have, myself and the other chiefs have learned with this endeavor is we've got to be patient. Again, this is a relatively small endeavor that we, testing as a concept. And, so we identified, the professional enablers, the cyber crimes, the platforms, and data as three areas that we could specifically go at in the short term to see if we could see what kind of success we could have in this type of a collaboration effort. If it's successful, and I believe it will be, part of what you're describing is future growth of the J5, to look beyond just these specific initiatives, to look at threat assessment so that we can jointly say, the Netherlands and the US and the HMRC are interested in this, flow of money to this particular jurisdiction, and be more forward thinking and do more threat assessments and kind of R&D, if you will. We're not there yet. I mean, we're trying to, again, the challenge with this is when we try to demonstrate success, usually success in the criminal tax world means individuals went to jail. These cases take a long time to work. There's cases that are under investigation, but we don't really have any public successes yet. So again, just kind of stress the level of patience and that it's relatively small and specific to these initiatives at this point. So let me talk, we'll have more time for questions, I think, at the end. Let me just go through a little bit on the cyber and cryptocurrency, some of which I talked about this morning. This was really, probably number one on the list when the five chiefs got together a couple years ago when we first started hearing about cryptocurrency and hearing from some of the experts. So we were really eager to take this on in a leadership role in the U.S. because we do have a lot of experience in this regard. And I talked about our agents we've had a huge problem in the U.S. with identity theft in the IRS, and at its height, probably one out of every 5 of our special agents was working identity theft cases for years. It was a huge time commitment. The silver lining to that was the expertise we gained in this cyber and the cryptocurrency area. And the agents that I handpicked to work on the cyber and cryptocurrency area, I consider to be worldwide experts. These are agents that were actively involved with the big dark web marketplace cases and have traveled the world doing training for other countries. So they have a lot of capabilities. But even within kind of lessons learned when we stood this up, even amongst these 5 countries, our capabilities are not as mature in some of the other countries, and some of the other countries really more focused on individuals hacking into the tax system, what we would call in the U.S. the identity theft cases, and it's gotten a lot better, but it's still there's constant attacks on the IRS systems. But this particular initiative is more focused on the use of virtual currencies and cryptocurrencies and the threat that it poses to tax administration. That's really, we've done extensive work on the non-tax side. So again, I said this morning, every one of these big cases that's been taken down, Alphabet, Silk Road, there's an IRS special agent following the money. That's how these cases were solved. It's all about the money. So we've got a lot of skill in that area. But you look at, we're all interested, again, our tax systems are all a little bit different, but we're all interested in what is the threat. Number one, is there a threat to tax administration? We believe that there is, just based on the value, if you look at the value of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency versus the number of tax returns that are claiming some type of activity in that area. And then plus all the criminal cases that we're dealing with informants and other sources of information, we believe that there's a non-compliance issue there. And then when you have, you've got employees being paid in Bitcoin, you've got goods and services being purchased with Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, not illegal on its surface. There's nothing illegal about using the cryptocurrency and virtual currency. It's, is it properly reported to the IRS is the bottom line. And when, there's that lack of transparency and visibility, the possibility of fraud goes up. So that's really this particular initiative focused on, for the 5 countries, what is our threat to tax administration? And, in this one, I'd say that it's been slow out of the gate. We've got a lot of cases, we've got a lot of capabilities, we've got our cyber crimes units going up. There's an intense amount of interest in the United States. The law enforcement presence of every agency. Every agency has a piece of this. There's a lot of great collaboration going on in the U.S. Our efforts on the J5 have largely been around training. We have realized that, when we were eager to run out of the gate, and we realized that some of our other countries are not as far along in how we track and trace cryptocurrency, what we're looking for when we talk about following the money. So we spent, a couple of our folks spent the first couple months traveling around the world, training the other countries on this is how you this is how you work these cases, this is how you follow the money. Incredibly inefficient way to do business, having a couple of agents travel around the world. We have I'm hosting in the U.S. in early June the next meeting of the J5 chiefs. At the same time, we are, along with the World Bank, putting together a pretty sizable cyber cryptocurrency training for a number of countries, not just the J5 countries, but many other countries. We believe we're going to have somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 countries sending representatives. So instead of us, a couple of guys traveling around the world, doing the training, we're actually putting on an event in Washington, D.C. in early June. So excited about that, excited about building up our capabilities. But again, there are folks out there that we believe there's mutual interest, that they're not just violating the law in the United States, but they may be violating the law in multiple jurisdictions. There's an uptick in BSA filings in this area. It's one of the areas that we look at closely in terms of development of cases. I talked about the CCUs, our cyber crimes units. One of the things that I didn't get a chance to talk about this morning, but it's really an interesting something that we're very interested in. Has anybody seen a Bitcoin ATM? So the Bitcoin ATMs are popping up all over the U.S., all over the world. A lot of them along the southwest border. I'm very interested in this. IRS CI is very interested in this area. If you have a Bitcoin ATM, the same know your customer requirements, FinCEN, regulations apply, but not all of them are registered. And the fees that can be charged with Bitcoin ATMs, again, on the surface, nothing illegal, but the idea of taking $10,000 to a Bitcoin ATM and you get $9,000 worth of Bitcoin, it seems like there's something potentially there for us to look at. So, and just the volume with which the Bitcoin ATMs are coming online is, we talk about trying to stay ahead of the criminals. This is an area where we think that there's some potential, and working with some of the other law enforcement partners on that initiative as well. So, questions on the cyber and cryptocurrency? I went through some of that stuff pretty quickly. Okay. Bert, anything else in terms of the platforms and technology in the Netherlands that you can share with us?
I think most I shared already. The hackathon and the Hydra system we were working on for data analysts, and maybe I could explain a little bit more from FCI.net, what it is. When it started, we had a problem, national and international, in information sharing. So we came up with the idea that we need a system in law enforcement to speed up the process of data matching and information sharing between different law enforcement agencies within a country and even worldwide. And what it is, FCI.net, it is a decentralized virtual computer network, and it enables the agencies to compare, analyze, and exchange data anonymously. And so you get the right information at the right time and even real time. And FCI.net will be able to, the agencies from the different jurisdictions, because that's always a problem, to work together while respecting each other's local autonomy and jurisdictions. That's very important for us. We're now working within different jurisdictions, so we do always, and everything we are doing with FCI.net is within the local jurisdictions. But what we can do is that organizations can be jointly connect the information without needing to surrender the data or control the data in a central database. FCI.net, that's very important, it doesn't collect the data, but it connects the data. So there's no central database. And you don't, as a country, you don't surrender your data. The ownership is always for yourself. And what it makes it possible within FCI.net is that you can choose, if you have connected more than one country, you can choose to which agency or which country you want to share your set of data. And it is a safe and technology, Match 3 I already mentioned, and they're already using it, what you call Vincent, we call it FIU, all over the world. So, and we have some external partners and university. They have looked for it, for privacy and privileged information and all kinds of that questions that there are. So what we're now doing, and we do it in the J5 as a project, and what we think, and I believe in that it can help us to fight us in the tax crime, and what we see more and more, we have a global problem, so we need to work together and to speed up the information that is going cross borders. So we use that for J5 and in that perspective. So that's I think one of the most important challenges for us now in our platform and data action group. And I already mentioned it. We hope this year we will be able to have some connections. We already managed to have connections between the tax authorities of the Netherlands and the Canadians. And we're now trying to get some connections in law enforcement. And what our experts on the jurisdiction told us, that it's possible for law enforcement to law enforcement, and it's possible for supervision to supervision, but not cross links. So we don't do that at this moment. So it's very safe, and sound, and our lawyers are always looking for it. That's the most important project now in platforms and data, and the other one I already told you, and what we're doing in the hackathons and all the initiatives, we're bringing the young experts together, and what we see is that we are using some tools, the IRS is using some tools, and we are trying to exchange that and learn from each other. Don told you about something about cybercrime, how they are training the other countries. What we are trying to do with the 5 countries to learn from each other. Every time you'll be a little bit surprised if you are working together with your colleagues from another country. We saw it in the challenge. They are learning all together. They're learning, all the 5 countries are learning from each other because they have other experience, other knowledge, other tools. So we can exchange that, and that's also important because that is for the field, but also for the IRS. Our budgets are limited, so if we can work together and share the new technologies and our tools, so we can help each other by that within the budget we have as each country.
Doug, since we were on a panel together this morning, this better be an easy one.
I think the question is probably easy. Some years ago, Australia implemented this Project Wickenby where their federal police, their tax office, their securities regulator, their bank regulator, their FIU were given a separate budget, and they were allowed to exchange information among one another, which is different than what you would typically find. And they used it to investigate a wide range of financial crimes. And I'm wondering whether there's been any dialogue around that type of activity in other countries. We've not done it in the United States, but I'm just curious whether they brought that up in the J5 or whether anybody's talked about that sort of an approach to law enforcement in that area.
Yeah, I've heard about it, but I can't recall, and maybe Bert recalls different. No, he'd say no, but I don't think it has come up. But I think it's now I mention it. It's something I'd like to follow up on and see, what the status of it. But it may be something to explore. It's a good question.
Could be interesting, yeah. I never heard it from.
Other questions? We have a little bit of time left. Nathan.
Very quick question about clarifying the FCINet permissions. Is that you said the permissions are for the actual sharing or for the connections without sharing?
Permission is also is for the data sharing.
Yes.
The data sets. So we need a permission. And what Don already said, it's more technical how the system works, but you have a clarification for the matching of the data sets between 2 agencies.
So I'll try to explain it this way. For us, when it's up and running, it'll probably be run out of the Fusion Center, which is a multi-jurisdictional facility in the U.S. It will, at first it will not involve any tax information at all. It will just be on our non-tax cases. And the example, when I've seen the technical folks give the demo is in the U.S., if there's a case on Don Fort, there is it's got a specific key based on my name and identifiers, which would mean nothing to anybody if you saw it. It's gibberish, basically. But if the inquiry then went to the Netherlands for Don Fort and they had somebody, the keys would literally match up. So then you could go through whatever legal mechanism to get the information, but it's a innovative technical solution to information sharing, and I'll stress it's not up and running yet. This is aspirational, and this is what we're hoping to be able to deliver hopefully this year, and something that the Netherlands came up with. And again, there's many legal privacy disclosure obstacles to overcome. That we're still working on.
So it sounds like it's masking IDs in the same way a public key for crypto would.
I think it's similar. I don't want to misspeak in this area because I've had the demo a couple times. These are it's something similar to that. I don't know, Bert, if you can.
No, yeah, I'm not the technical solution, but what you mean is you have a name. Bert Langerak, and it's exchanging a lot of keys and anonymous, and at the end it's going to the United States. They don't know my name, but they see the key, and they see they have a hit or they have a no hit, and when there's a hit, we use the normal legal procedures to get the information.
Other questions? We have a little bit of time remaining. It doesn't look like there's any more questions. I'll just say, I didn't have an opportunity. I think Bert covered the enablers in quite a bit of detail, but we're working. That's something being spearheaded and led by the HMRC, but something we all have a lot of interest in. The professional enablers, and you look at. That's probably where our greatest potential for investigations lie, is that these individuals that are out there promoting various schemes are not, just doing it to one country. When we compare notes and we look at, who the potential perpetrators are, there's a lot of common interest there. So that is an area that all of the countries are fully vested in, and again, I think has probably the greatest chance of more immediate success in that area. So if there's no more questions, and again, I'd like to thank Bert for coming. Appreciate you coming out here and sharing your insight. And again, I think everybody saw the kind of the similarities of the system, and I have been, again, amazed at some of the technical and data solutions that the Netherlands have that we're really trying to learn from. And again, in terms of just relationship building, the agents that we've selected to work on these various initiatives are in constant contact now. And so if nothing else, these are agents that would never have any connection were it not for the J5. There may be a specific case that one of our agents is working with one of Bert's agents, but now the sharing of information, the training, the best practices, again, has already paid huge dividends. So appreciate everybody coming out this afternoon. Appreciate your time. Thank you.